Hello guys and welcome back to the channel Building Amazing Things. So in today's video we are going to be looking at responsive grid system. I'll show you guys how to set up a grid system for your mobile, iPad and desktop views. Also we are going to create this amazing responsive design in Figma, and we wrap up this video by understanding the difference between these two concepts, responsive design and adaptive design. So guys, make sure you subscribe to this channel and relax and let's get started. So guys, let's jump into Figma and let's get to understand the importance of our responsive grid system and see why we need to have a responsive grid system. So if you look at this design right now, and let's say we want to resize this to, let's say, a mobile device, and once we resize, this is what we get as a mobile design screen. This doesn't look impressive and the users are going to be like, what kind of design is this? And once we resize to, let's say, an iPad, and this is what we get. The navigation is looking bad, and pretty the text is not really okay, and the image kind of okay a little bit, but not that perfect. So at this point, we now sort out what kind of solution are we going to do. We are going to create a responsive grid for each of the devices, the iPad and the phone and the desktop, which we already have. So now there are two ways design approach to having a responsive grid system. There's the mobile first design, where you start from the mobile, then you design the iPad, then you design the desktop. There's the desktop first design approach, where you start from the desktop. Now this design approach depends on the users. It depends on the audience you're designing for. So if you're designing for audience that are more on the mobile device, you should start with the mobile first design approach. And if you're designing a system or a product that works for where the users are more when it comes to the desktop, then you should design the desktop design approach first. So what I'm going to do now is to add the various screens. So I'm not using any design approach here first. I'm just designing, so for the purpose of education. So what I'm going to do is to add the various screens so that we can now start creating a responsive grid system. So the first thing I need to do is to select the frame, and under the tablet, I'm going to select iPad Pro 11. So cool, we have an iPad. So I'm going to rename this to iPad. The size should be 834. And let's see if we rename the desktop. And I'm going to call this desktop. So guys, I created a video about grid system and the basics of grid system and the baseline grid system. If you have not watched the video, check in the description or click in the link here to actually understand what a grid system is. So let's rename this to desktop, and the size is 144T. And cool. So I'm going to add another frame, which is going to be the phone. Definitely I'm going to use iPhone 11 Pro. I think most people have not started using 13, and that's why I'm using Pro. So name this iPhone, and the size should be, or name it phone rather, phone, and the size is 375. Cool. So we have the different sizes. And next, I'm going to turn on the grid line, and you see the grid here. So to create the grid line for this, what I would do is to select the two grid here, the row and the column, and I'll select these two frames and use my Command V on them to paste. So I'm going to do some little adjustments for the iPad. So I'm going to select the columns and I'm selecting the rows. So what I'm going to do, I'm not going to tweak the rows, but rather the columns. So I'm setting the columns to 8-column grid system, and I'm setting the margin to 56, and I think this is okay. Then for the mobile phone, what I'm going to do is to set it to 4. You can set it to 6, but I'm setting mine to 4 depending on what you want to achieve. And I'm setting the margin. I'm definitely reducing the margin, and the gutter, I'm definitely also reducing the gutter to 16. You can set yours to 20, whatever you think works best for you. All right. So now we have our grid system set up for the phone, the iPad, and already have the desktop from our previous video. So next, what I'm going to do is to turn off this grid system and try to move each of these contents to the different frames. So, but before I do that, I think I want to make this a little bit responsive before moving it. So for this, if you notice, if I'm resizing, the responsive features have been done here, but I'm going to remove that quickly so that I can show you guys what I mean by responsive features. And constraint, I'm setting the constraint back. I think it was set before, but I'm removing that. Cool. So if I'm resizing this, right, the size is 140. If you notice that I'm resizing it, it's terrible. It's not really nice. And we need to have a cool design for each of this. So we need to make this a little bit responsive. And to do that, we can use the constraint on each of these to make it more responsive. So I'm just checking to make sure everything is okay before I start resizing. So there's one thing I talked about in the previous video. I mentioned about breaking the rules when it comes to grid arrangement. You can choose to change. You can choose not to align things to the grid, but when at this point you're trying to be more creative. So what I want to do is to go beyond this. Go beyond the grid and have something like this. I think this is okay, and we can work with this. So it's not every time you align things to the grid, but try to use your eyes, try to be more creative, and try to arrange things that it looks also perfect. So having said that, I'm going to change this to fill, so it looks pretty nice. I think the image was not okay, and I changed it to fill, and it's looking perfect. So now, as I'm saying initially, as I'm resizing this, the navigation is not really perfect, and everything here is just not responsive. So we're going to work on this. So what I'm going to do is to select this and go to constraints, and perfect, this sits okay for me. I want it horizontally to be constrained to the left and vertically to be constrained to the top. So when I'm resizing, it remains here. And for this, I'm going to set the constraint. I'm going to set it to be constrained to the right when it comes to horizontal constraint. And you can just click on this drop down and select what you want. And notice what happens once I set it to the right. It remains at the right and the margin remains here. So as of this point, it's still looking okay. The spacing between the logo and the navigations are still looking okay. As of this point, it's still looking okay. So this is pretty okay. I'll set it back to 1440, which is the width. Sorry. I'll set the width to the initial width. And for this, now let's look at this and see what we have. I think this is okay, but we can, you see, once you scale, you notice that it is cutting out the images. So it's really cutting out the image. So what I can do is to select this, and I can set the horizontal to, let's see center, what center will give us. And I think center is giving us, is trying to arrange the image in the center. So we're cutting out from the left and right, and that looks interesting. So if you look what is happening here, we still have a pretty good design as of this point, which is 1254. We have removed a lot of pixels from it, and our designs is still looking pretty awesome at this point. So that's for that. And for this constraint on left, right, left on top, okay. For this, I'm going to set it to, let's set it back to our width back to 1440. So for this, I want to change the horizontal to scale. Let's say left right, and let's see what left right is going to give us. Okay, this is okay. Left right is perfect. Can you see that? Awesome. So I'm going to also set this to left right, and let's see what we'll have with left right. Awesome. Awesome. So this is pretty good from what we have initially. If you remembered, initially it was uh, cutting out the navigation in this, and this is really, 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 really awesome. This is really awesome. So, guys, this is the first step to this, and once you do this, then you can then move your designs elements to the other screen size. And I think this is okay as of this point. Once the size increases, there's an issue once it increases more than that, but once the size increases to this point, you see that it is really awesome. It's really nice. Someone says I should stop using awesome. So as of 1440, this is the initial size of the screen, and I'm removing let's reduce down to 301 for 300, still looking nice, and down to 267, still looking awesome, and still looking nice, and then to 1200, 1200, 1200, and it's still looking good. Guys, what do you think? This is perfect. So, guys, without wasting much of our time, let's dive into the iPad and let's see what we can do with the iPad. So, I'll basically pick the logo. So, I'm just going to pick the logo and put the logo here, copy the image, paste it here as well, and resize the image. Good. Then I'm going to pick these elements. So I want the fitness bike with its title to come over here. And this should come as well here. I think the image should go first. So image, try to align first. And let's increase the size of the iPad. Then the text should come here as well. So good. And let's work on this. So I'm going to turn on the grid line to really arrange this perfectly. And for the fitness, should start from the grid line and match with the baseline. And for this as well, this is okay for me. And for the image, I'm going to match this here, and then this should go here as well. And let's see, change this to fill and crop, back to crop, and bring it up a little bit. So we have the bike sitting well. So turn off the grid line to see what we have. Okay, perfect. I'm going to bring it up a little bit, turn the grid line, and then set it to match very well with the grid line. And I think this is okay. Still going to tweak this image, set to fill, set to crop, bring it up a little bit up. And this is perfect. Turn off the grid line, and we have this. So for the text, I'm going to also do that for the text. Turn on the grid line and set this to match to the edge of the column. And let's see if it's sitting on the baseline. Perfect. I think it's sitting on the baseline, but let's move it a little bit and it's okay. So let's check the spacing between this and this and this. I think this is okay. So what are we going to do? This is okay. This is okay. This is okay. So for the navigation, bro, let's take the navigation. So I'm going to pick the navigation and then post the navigation here. And you can see the navigation is not really entering. Oh, this is not nice. So what we can do is to reduce the spacing. And let's reduce the spacing to 10, or let's use 8 rather. And though we reduced it to 8, and you can see it's still not balancing, and it's still not okay at the iPad view, and this is wrong, even though that the spacing is pretty bad, and we need to give more spacing to this. So since we noticed that this cannot sit here, we'll find another way of doing it. So in the previous video, I think I added an icon here. So I'm going to leave the icon here. Back to this video. I actually done this before. So that's actually the grid system. I just went there to pick the icon. And I'm going to paste the icon here and align it perfectly. Okay. So turn on the grid system to make sure it's aligning at the column and aligning at the grid line. So you can select this and make it align vertical center and try to make the text align at the grid line. Perfect. So you turn off the grid line and we have this. So now what this means is once I toggle on this, the navigation drops down and I have navigation. So that's for the iPad. Really awesome, right? It's looking interesting. Neat. So as of this point, which is 834. So if we resize this to 834, let's see, let me just set it manually. 834. You could see that the navigation is terrible at this point, but on this design, the navigation is looking perfectly okay. You could see that the text as well is terrible at this point and is looking perfectly okay here. And also the image is looking distorted here, is also looking perfectly okay. So that's the essence of creating different screen size and making some responsive design as well. I love making responsive design. So guys, let's go to the next one. Let's not waste much time. You know, I play a lot recently. I've been too serious before now, but lately I play a lot. Oh my god. So I've posted this here and finding it difficult to look at some of the items. So I'm undoing what I paste. So I'm just going to pick the basic items I think will show up and we'll paste. So now we have this. I'm going to turn on the grid line and going to take this up a little bit because it's under the mobile and with the space and set it this way, turn off the grid line and turn it on again. So you play a lot with turning off the grid line and turning it on. So I'm going to resize this. I think it's looking too big. So resize it and make sure you resize to the baseline. And at the baseline, turn it on. I'll still bring this down. Okay, and I'm still going to increase the frame size, and I'm take this up and take this up a little bit. So turn on the grid line. So you're going to be working most of the time with the grid line, and it helps you to really arrange your content and make it more appealing to the users. So because I'm used to this and that's why I'm doing it that fast, you might not do yours that fast. So be patient and do it gradually. So I'm going to change this from crop to fill and back to crop, set it the way I want it to be. Basically fill is perfect for it. Turn off the grid line to see what we have, and so turn on the grid line and let's bring this down a little bit. Turn off the grid line. I think it's okay. So for the text, I'm going to bring it up, turn on the grid line as well, and resize this to match and turn off the grid line. So I noticed there are kind of spaces between each of the words. So to solve this, you can change the justification to left align. Doesn't look so strong, perfect, but I think it's better than the justification. What do you think, guys? Let me take it back to justification. Let me know what you think in the comment section. I think I'm enjoying the justification rather. So I'm going to reduce this down to this point. And then what next? Oh, the sizes are looking terrible. So, but let me pick up this logo here and the navigation icon, and select this tool and make it, sorry, what's happening? Select this tool and make it beginning to become a terrible design. So set that and then turn on the grid line and make sure it aligns to the baseline. Okay, then this as well to the baseline as well and the grid line. So the size, I think the sizes are issues here. I think the sizes are perfect on the iPad, but on the mobile device, the sizes are terrible. Look at this. Look at this. So I'm going to reduce this from 24. I'm going to make it 16. And this, I'm going to change it from 32. I'm going to change it to 24. And for this, I'm going to change it to 14. What X? I think the sizes of this is still looking very big. So I'm going to resize it and make sure it aligns to the grid line as well. So I think this is okay. And let's take it up a little bit. So this is perfect. So for this size, it's 32 initially. I'm going to change it to 24. Turn on the grid line and make sure it snaps to the baseline. Turn off the grid line. Sorry. So I'm going to drag this up a little bit and drag this up a little bit as well. Turn on the grid line to make sure it snaps to the grid line. And this is off the column. And is this snapping to the grid line? Yeah, snapped. Good, guys. So I think I'll bring this down a little bit. And I'm going to resize the frame size. Perfect. So this is what we have. So let's check the responsiveness of this. At some point, it's looking interesting, but at this point, you can see the image is distorted. I think at this point, this should swap to this. So this is interesting. At this point, it's still interesting. And at this point, it's looking terrible. Then for the mobile phone, I don't think there are smaller phones than this, but if there are, then this is okay. I think we should increase this a little bit as well. And let's see. Increase as well a little bit. Let's see. Okay. Okay. And I noticed something. So back to the size 375. And this is it for the different screens. Perfect. If you really understood this, you're a great designer. Thumbs up. So guys, let's jump into making this presentable to our engineers. So we want our engineers to know that once you swap reducing this size, it should swap to this. And once you're reducing this, it should swap to this. So there are different breakpoints. Once it gets to the point where it doesn't look really interesting anymore, you should swap this. That's making it responsive. So if you notice, the content are really just kind of changing their position, but the content still exists. So let me just quickly just chip in. What are the difference between a responsive and an adaptive design? So a responsive design is having a single design having a single design change to different screen sizes. So they become responsive. So you notice that the content on this particular design, we kind of make it swap to the other screen sizes. The contents still exist and they just really just change their positioning. But when it comes to adaptive design, you are actually designing a different kind of design for different devices. So that's adaptive design. You create different designs. And so you create different designs for different devices. So what the browser or the device does, or your application will actually detect the kind of device you're using and render the kind of design that was supposed to be meant for that. That's adaptive design. But responsive design is once you create this particular design, you can easily resize and it swaps to the particular screen size. Having said that, I hope you understand what I was trying to say. So the next thing I'm going to do is to make this more presentable when you reduce it to different breakpoints. So what I was trying to do is to, once I resize this to the point of 834, it should change to 834. And once I'm resizing the iPad to the point of 375, it should change to 375. So perfect. What I'm going to do now is to use this wonderful plugin, which I found out, breakpoints, click on it, install it, and run. It says 15 days trial. So this is not a paid video. I'm just trying it out. So let's see what we have. So create a new adaptive design. Perfect. It creates this adaptive design. So we could see 2 breakpoints here. So let's add the first breakpoint, which is 375. The next breakpoint, which is 834, sorry. And let's add more breakpoints. The last one, which is 1440. So because we have 3 points, we need to add another for the 4th point to be able to achieve what we want. So I'm going to add the 4th point. This is the maximum, which is, let's say, 1920, for example. So now we have created the breakpoints. So let's select each of the breakpoints. To select each of the breakpoints, this is where you select. You notice that let me zoom in. You notice that it has resized. Once you select 834, you see it has resized. Once you select 1920, oh, perfect. 1440 resize as well. So for each of these sizes, I'm going to click on plus, and it says select the frame. So I'm going to select this frame, and for the 834, I click plus, it says select frame. I'm going to select this frame, and for the 1440 select frame, I'm going to select this, and perfect. That's how to use it. So let's select each of the frame. For this, I'm going to resize this to accommodate everything I have. 18434. Let's resize as well to accommodate everything. And okay, let's see. Let's see what happens. Go back to 834. Oh, I think there's an issue. So I need to increase this again. And let's see. Okay, perfect. So let's see what happens when we increase to 1920. Terrible, right? But we're going to come back to that. So let's look at the 3 points we have created for first. You can as well make your design for 1920 as well. But now let's look at the 3 designs, the 3 breakpoints we talked about earlier, which is 1440 834, which is for the iPad, 1440 is for the desktop, and 1440 is for the desktop, 834 iPad, and this for the mobile phone. So once I resize down, you see we're getting to this point of the iPad. It's looking terrible here. I think there's an issue with this, so I can set this to, instead of center, I can set it to scale, and let's see what happens. Yeah, it's looking perfect now. Yeah, so cool. At this point as well, I can set this to scale, and let's set this to scale as well. Perfect. And then let's see, and then at this point I can set this to scale as well. And I think this is perfect. So guys, let's take a look. Remember, I set each of them to scale. So 375, which is the mobile view, we get what we have designed for mobile, and this is it. For above 375, we're still getting something really interesting, but once we get to 834, you see our design snaps to what we've already designed for iPad. And what this plugin helps, it just creates like components that really changed from one component to another. So, and let's scale again. It's looking interesting. And it got to the point of the 1440, and it's also scaled as well. This is really awesome. If you understand this, then you're a pro designer, as I say. So guys, if you really like this video, give me a thumbs up. Let me know how you feel about this video. Write in the comment section. Tell me what you feel about this video. Share, comment, like. If you want to support me, anyhow you can support me, let me know in the comment section. So guys, I'm done with this section of videos, series of videos where I talked about grid system. I talked about the basis of grid system. I talked about column grid system. I talked about baseline grid system, and now I talked about responsive grid line system, adaptive grid line system, and how to create a responsive grid system. So guys, see you in the next video where I talk about something different from grid system. I think that's all for grid system, and if you have understand all this about grid system, congratulations, you're now a pro designer. Bye and have fun. Cheers.